ears will not ring, his hands and feet will not tingle, his stomach will not foam with the roaring sound that has gotten inside of him and that he fears in his deepest heart will never go away again. Her uncle in his room of imagined books. Everything smells of books, an odor of forgotten memories. This is the library of imagined books, her uncle says, because he never reads any of them. Still, he's collected them from friends' basements and attics, garage sales and widows' dens, all over Culver City, West Hollywood, Pasadena, Laurel Canyon, picking books for their heft and their leather-belted covers. The actual pages don't matter. "If you behave," he tells his 39-year-old niece, Serene, "I'll tell you the whole story this time." "You always say I'm too young to hear the whole story," Serene says. She carves a tiny bit of peel from a lemon for her uncle's coffee. They're up in the bluish-white pre-dawn, both of them chronically early risers and chronically sleepy. Her uncle looks at her over his glasses. The narrow ovals slide down his nose. He tries to press them back into place. "Do I say that? I wonder why. Well, what are you now, half-century yet?" "I'm 39 and a half." He makes a dismissive little flick with his fingers. "Too young. I'll save the juicy parts for when you're half-century." "Oh boy, I can't wait." "Yes, that's how the young are. No one wants to wait." He takes a ceremonial sip of coffee and nods. "So this is the moralist story of Abdelrahman Salahadin, my favorite cousin, who had an incurable addiction to selling himself and faking his drowning." "It sounds long," Serene says. "Haven't I already heard this one?" "It's a good, short story, Miss Hurry-Up-American. It's the story of how to love," he says. Serene puts her hands into her uncombable hair, closes her eyes. "I'm going to be late for work again." "There you have it. The whole world is late for work, and all faucets leak too. What can be done?" So it begins. He situates himself in his storytelling position, elbow on knee and hand to brow. "Abdelrahman Salahadin was a sensitive man. He never forgot to bathe before his prayers. Sometimes he knelt on the beach and made the sand his prayer carpet. He just had the one vice." Serene narrows her eyes. "Wait a second. You said this is the story of how to fall in love? And is there even a woman in this one?" Her uncle tilts back his head. Eyebrows lift, tongue clicks. This means no, or wait, or foolish, or you just don't understand. "Take my word for it," he says. "Love and prayer are intimately related." He sighs. Then he says slyly, "So, I hear Professor Handsome was in today eating some of your tabbouleh. Again." Once again, her uncle is speaking of Hanif El-Ayed, the new hire in the Near Eastern Studies Department at the university. Hanif has come into the restaurant 4 times since arriving in town several weeks ago, and her uncle keeps introducing him to Serene, saying their names over and over. "Serene? Hanif. Hanif? Serene." Serene leans over the cutting board she has balanced on her knees and steadies the lemon. "I really don't know who you're referring to." Her uncle gestures with both arms. "He's tremendous, covered with muscles and shoulders like this, like a Cadillac, and a face like I don't know what." "Well, if you don't know, I certainly don't," Serene says as she slices the lemon. Her uncle lounges back in his big blue chair. "No, really, you can't believe it, I'm telling you. He looks like a hero, like Ulysses." "That's supposed to sound good?" "I would just like to see you with someone nice and charming and all those things. That's all." The grill at work is so wide Serene must stand on tiptoes to reach all the way to the back. There are bright pans hanging from an overhead rack and magnetic rows of gleaming knives. Her arms are dashed with red slivers of burns, and as she bends to scrape the grill surface, she feels its smell passing into her hair and clothes. Even after a day off, she can still catch whiffs of it as she turns her head. There is a ruby haze beneath the heat lamp, vapors rising from the stove, and everywhere the murmurings of the fans. Nadia's cafe is like other places, crowded at meals and quiet in between. But somehow there is also usually a lingering conversation, currents of Arabic that ebb around Serene, fill her head with mellifluous voices. Always there are the same groups of students from the big university up the street, always so lonely, the sadness like blue hollows in their throats, blue motes for their wives and children back home, or for the American women they haven't met. The Arab families usually keep their daughters safe at home. The few women who do manage to come to America are good students. They study at the library and cook for themselves. And only the men spend their time arguing and being lonely, drinking tea and trying to talk to Nadia, Mireille, and Serene. Especially Serene. They love her food, the flavors that remind them of their homes. But they also love to watch Serene, with her skin so pale it has the bluish cast of skim milk, her wild blonde head of hair, and her sea-green eyes. She has the worst kind of hair for a chef, curly and viney and falling all over her shoulders, resisting ponytails and scarves and braids. She is so kind and gentle-voiced, and her food is so good that the students cannot help themselves. They sit at the tables, leaning toward her. Nadia, the owner of the cafe and all-around boss, is always tilting her hip against the students' chairs, keeping them company. She wears a flowered pink house dress with a deep V in front, all soft cleavage and dangling gold hoops and high-heeled too small slippers, while her daughter Mireille and Victor Hernandez, the young Mexican busboy hopelessly in love with Mireille, and the Central American custodian Cristobal, and Serene the chef are in motion around her. Paradise, Nadia likes to say. This life on earth is a paradise, if only we knew it. Serene has heard her say this so many times she knows how to say it in Arabic. Victor Hernandez, who looks a little like a short Mexican Charlton Heston, smiles and raises his eyebrows at Mireille. Mireille looks away from him and frowns at the refrigerator. Nadia says the loneliness of the Arab is a terrible thing. It is all-consuming. It is already present like a little shadow under the heart when he lays his head on his mother's lap. It threatens to swallow him whole when he leaves his own country, even though he marries and travels and talks to friends 24 hours a day. That is the way Serene suspects that Arabs feel everything, larger than life, feelings walking in the sky. And sometimes when she is awake in the center of the night cool and succulent as heart of palm or a little chicken kebab, Serene senses these feelings rushing in her own blood. But she was also born with an abiding sense of patience, an ability to live deeply and purely inside her own body, to stop thinking, to work, and to simply exist inside the simplest actions like chopping an onion or stirring a pot. Serene learned how to cook professionally working as a line cook and then a sous chef in the kitchens of French, Italian, and Californian restaurants. But when she moved to Nadia's cafe, she went through her parents' old recipes and began cooking the favorite but almost forgotten dishes of her childhood. She felt as if she were returning to her parents' tiny little kitchen and her earliest memories. Serene rolled out dough early in the morning in her open kitchen behind the counter and discreetly watched the students sipping coffee, studying the newspapers, and having arguments. Everything about these young men seemed infinitely vulnerable and tender. Their dense, curling lashes, soft, round noses and full lips, winnowed-away faces and chests. Sometimes she used to scan the room and imagine the word terrorist, but her gaze ran over the faces, and all that came back to her were words like lonely and young. Occasionally, a student would linger at the counter talking to Serene. He would tell her how painful it is to be an immigrant, even if it was what he'd wanted all his life. Sometimes especially if it was what he'd wanted all his life. Americans, he would tell her, don't have the time or the space in their lives for the sort of friendship, days of coffee drinking and talking, that the Arab students craved. For many of them, the cafe was a little flavor of home. At Nadia's cafe, there is a TV tilted in the corner above the cash register, permanently tuned to the all-Arabic station, with news from Qatar, variety shows and a shopping channel from Kuwait, endless Egyptian movies, Bedouin soap operas in Arabic, and American soap operas with Arabic subtitles. There is a group of regulars who each have their favorite shows and dishes and who sit at the same tables as consistently as if they were assigned. There are Janub, Garb, and Shmal, engineering students from Egypt, Shark, a math student from Kuwait, Lon Hayden, the chair of Near Eastern Studies, Morris, who owns the newsstand, Raphael from New Jersey, Ray, John, and Troy from the Kappa something-something fraternity house, Oda, the Turkish butcher, and his many sons. There are 2 American policemen, one white and one black, who come to the cafe every day, order fava bean dip and lentils fried with rice and onions, and have become totally entranced by the Bedouin soap opera plot lines involving ancient blood feuds, bad children, and tribal honor. There are students who come religiously, appearing at the counter with their newspapers almost every day for years, until the day they graduate and disappear, never to be seen again. And then there are the students who never graduate. Even though Nadia's cafe is in the middle of an Iranian neighborhood, there are few Iranian customers. After the long, bitter war between Iraq and Iran, some of whom Nadia's Iranian neighbors refused to enter the cafe because of Serene, the Iraqi-American chef. Still, Kurush, the Persian owner of the Victory Market up the street, appeared on Serene's first day of work, announcing that he was ready to forgive the Iraqis on behalf of the Iranians. He stood open-mouthed when he saw white-blonde Serene, then finally blurted out, "Well, look at what Iraq has managed to produce." He asked if she knew how to make the Persian specialty koresh fezanjan, his favorite walnut and pomegranate stew, and when she promised to learn, he returned later in the day and presented her with a potted pomegranate tree. Serene wears her hair tied back, but it still hangs in damp tendrils all over, in the corner of her mouth, in her eyes. She works and listens to the bells ringing over the door banging, conversations surging into argument and back again. There is always so much noise. There are birds arguing in the tree outside the kitchen window. "Life is an argument," Nadia says. When Serene laughs and asks, "What are they fighting about?" Nadia says, "What else? The world." Serene looks up, past the hood of the heat lamp, watching customers fill the tables. More students, stripling thin, faces narrowed with exhaustion, loneliness, and talking. She is frying onions and working on 2 dishes at once, chopping eggplant and stirring the leban, a delicate mellow yogurt sauce that needs constant stirring or it will break, and she watches the argument at the latest table. 4 of them, including Hanif El-Ayed, have just come in. Rectangles of light pass over them from the windows in the door as it opens and closes. There are voices blurring and unblurring, complicated gestures, winding hands and arms. It sounds like the same sort of argument the students are always having, about America, the Middle East, and who is wronging whom. This time it's in Arabic. Sometimes it's in English. Usually it's a little of both. She's noticed that Hanif frequently has an entourage of students in his wake, young men and some women, who tentatively follow him, asking his opinions of things. Her main impressions of Hanif are of his hair, straight and shiny as black glass, and of a faint tropical sleepiness to his eyes. And there's his beautiful, lightly accented, fluid voice, dark as chocolate. His accent has nuances of England and Eastern Europe, like a complicated sauce. Serene has just turned from the leban to the eggplant when Hanif bursts into English. "Of course I love Iraq. Iraq is my home. And there is, of course, no going home," and then back into Arabic. She looks at him, the white of his teeth, the silky dram of skin, cocoa bean brown. He's well-built, tall and strong. He laughs and the others follow his laughter. Nadia has stationed herself beside him. Standing, one hip against the table, she holds her hand out as if she will curl her knuckles right through his hair. She sighs, tilts one foot on its shiny, worn heel, then pats the puffed top of her own hair. She looks over, still smiling, to Serene behind the counter and says, "Roasted lamb, rice and pine nuts, tabbouleh salad, apricot juice." Then she blows a kiss. Hanif glances at Serene. She looks down, quick, a bunch of parsley pinched in her fingertips, rocks the big cleaver through a profusion of green leaves, onions, cracked wheat. Suddenly she remembers the leban and hurries to the big pot full of yogurt sauce, which is just on the verge of curdling. Serene's uncle leans forward over their kitchen table, watching Serene as she scrapes a little more tabbouleh salad on his dinner plate. "I'm so full, Habiti," he says. "Really, I couldn't eat another bite." "You didn't eat any vegetables at all." She stands back and places the dishes in the sink. When she turns back, however, he is biting into a large